And is it
Mhm.
a quart or a cart?
A car down the street, right? Right.
The question I got, and I'll read it word for word. How do you tactfully but effectively address an employee or coworker, letting them know that they have chronic body odor, that there is some sort of odor and it's affecting others in the office, could be affecting clients, business, etc. Kind of an uncomfortable question.
This is a very interesting question, whoever submitted it. It's a great question.
It is.
And I think the main theme about this is you want to approach these types of conversations with sympathy and empathy and a lot of sensitivity because you just don't know what people are going through. And so when you talk about body odor and these types of things, it's obviously a very sensitive discussion that needs to happen. And I think it's something where you have to ask yourself, well, where is it coming from? Like, is it an employee who has made a report to the manager that another person has this type of body odor? Typically, that's how they come in. And it's important for the manager, whether it's the direct manager or if it goes to the HR office, for them to have that conversation with the individual employee directly. I think it's also important to verify the information that may be coming from. So let's use the example of not to be funny, like these are real cases, but let's say someone passes gas in the office and it smells pretty bad, right? And maybe they don't know it. Maybe you, as the HR person or the manager, one, do you verify that yes, the farts are smelly, right? And so, right, I mean, seriously, right?
We're going
Yes,
there.
this we're going there, and so yes, it is. So now you need to approach that conversation with the employee, and it's really from a place of support. Here is what was brought to our attention. Differing schools of thought whether you share from whom the information came from. But if you've verified it yourself, then you can kind of take some onus. Like, I happened to notice this on a couple times, whatever. But you talk with them about, is there anything I can do to help support? And through those conversations, you could find out a variety of things. Now, if someone's passing gas in the office, we don't presume that it's necessarily disability related. But sometimes these types of things can be. If someone is incontinent or they have some new medication that they're taking for IBS that causes flatulence, that then now there's an issue that takes us truthfully into this whole different realm of law where we talk about reasonable accommodations. And so that's one angle that this could go down. And so if a manager then finds out that this is something that's related to someone's disability or medical condition, then we talk about engaging in the cooperative dialogue. And I'm doing quotes off screen because cooperative dialogue is a term of art in the law that's basically a conversation between parties on how can they best accommodate whatever is going on in the working environment. And so there can be a variety of ways that this could be resolved. Let's keep going down this, just call it the smelly fart example, right? Let's say that's happening and, oh, hey, I'm now taking this new drug for IBS and it's causing flatulence. I didn't realize it was that bad. Okay. But what are the options for me? Well, especially now, right? Maybe you can telework for a little bit to get that under control while you get adjusted to new or different medicine. Okay. That's one example. Potentially people could have bad body odor for their hygiene isn't up to par, like bathing, whatever. And maybe then there's something that is attached to a policy in the organization that a manager or a leader or an HR person can then touch upon. And this is now going a different direction. Let's say if someone's coming to work and they're disheveled, right? Not only is there an odor issue, but there's also some sort of dishevelment that could lead to a whole host of other issues and not necessarily RA related, but from a human to human standpoint, what's going on in this person's life? Is there a way we can support? Maybe there's things that they're not sharing. Right? We're all going through something. You just never really know.
So let's step back. You are a leader, you're a manager, one of your employees comes to you and flags an issue. It smells really bad. It's affecting me, it's affecting others. Can you do something about it? As a leader, you have one person coming to you and complaining about another. Do you have a duty to respond and do something about it. Because I feel like most leaders in that situation would be like, okay, well, maybe I can move you, or let's not do anything quite yet. At what point do you actually do something?
I think when one person comes to a manager with an issue, it's important for that manager to truthfully try to figure out what's going on and to not wait for the groundswell of a whole host of folks coming to you, because now that's a signal that maybe things have gotten out of control. So an individual comes to you with an issue like this, I think it's important to really ask questions about, well, what's going on? When did this happen? What did you notice? And then obviously the person will be identified. And then it's important to have that, talk with them directly. Maybe not that day, but you're getting a better understanding of, this got brought to me. I want to know more. I want to explore more. I want to ask more questions to figure out what's going on. Because fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes these types of complaints can come up and there's a much deeper underlying issue. Let's use the example. Let's say this comes up. It's me and you. We've been working together for the past 6 years. This has never been an issue. We report to someone named Mark. And now you're going to Mark with these issues. Brian, he's got these odors going, and it's really bothering me now. But we've been sitting together for the past 6 years, and this has never been an issue. If I were to get that case, I'd be like, what's going on here? That's different as opposed to you and Stacy have been in the unit. Brian now joins and I'm new. And now it's like, hey, the new guy has got a bit of an odor. I don't know what's going on here. I'm not trying to bash him. Seems like a nice guy, but something's going on here. That feels a little different. So it's important for managers to really do that exploration. And it's a part of managing a team.
So it's taking into account the context, the timelines, the people involved. Those are all really good points. This is obviously, as a human, an uncomfortable situation, whether you're
Yeah.
the manager, you're the person reporting it, you're the person receiving the report. But there are also legal implications. It could be cultural, medical, disability, right? So as you mentioned, it's really important that we have these sensitivities to the situations. What advice do you have for managers once they've received the complaint, they know they need to do something? What do you do to proceed with sensitivity and caution? Because it could be so many things. It feels like it could be a can of worms and you don't know what's going to come out of there.
So this is where all the managers will probably share a sigh of relief, but you should make a notification to your HR office. You should talk to your HR business partner to raise this issue. I need some assistance in addressing it, because it can go down a few different pathways. You want to tread lightly, especially when it goes down the reasonable accommodation path. There's a whole process that organizations need to go through to ensure that if an accommodation is needed, that someone can receive that. I would strongly encourage a manager to include their business partner sooner rather than later.
Let's go deeper. I'm going to challenge you because I work with a lot of companies and leaders who may be at the stage where they don't even have an HR person. Okay, so
Okay.
you're a leader, you get this complaint, you don't have an HR person. What do you do then?
Great questions. I'll share a resource then that you should use. Give a little background. So I'm an employment attorney by trade. And so when I've done investigations in this space, and I've seen reasonable accommodations and EEO investigations in a past life for different organizations. So one of the key resources that I found very useful was called the Job Accommodations Network. It's called JAN. This is a gold mine of information for what we're talking about, these types of issues: body odor, reasonable accommodations, how you accommodate someone victim of sex offenses or domestic violence, whatever the case may be. Jan will have some guidance on that. But remember, the human side of all of this is truthfully very, very important. Managers, we all should start from that vantage point. This is a human being, they're having an issue, and let's say they actually know about it. That's embarrassing, right? This is an embarrassing part of their life in a place that they spend probably too much time anyway. And so now, how do we have this conversation with respect and dignity that that person deserves?
So, how do we approach this sensitively? The first point that we would probably both argue is not to make any assumptions about what the cause or the source is, right?
Cool.
It could be cultural, it could be medical, it could be the foods you're cooking, it could be hygiene, it could be a host of things. So,
Right.
what steps can that manager take to do this in the most respectful and sensitive way possible?
So it really starts with that manager setting up a meeting. I'll use you as an example. Melina, are you free today at 3? Would love to talk to you briefly. Oh, what's this about? We just want to chat. You can meet in my office, or you want to meet in a private area. Okay. So it's about one, setting the stage. So you invite this individual to a meeting that's in a private location. It's not something you're having on the cubicle farm, right?
I
You
hope
know,
not.
so you have this in a private area, and in this conversation, I started with the normal niceties that you would, but then you mentioned to them, look, I want to talk with you about something that was recently brought to my attention, and I want to see if there's any way that I can support. And then you go into whatever this situation was. It got brought to my attention that, or I happened to notice that you've been coming into work not looking like your normal self, or happen to notice there's an odor that's in your area, and I just want to make sure that everything is okay. Are you aware of this? And you talk to them as you would just a regular human being. And in those discussions, you're talking with empathy, you're being sensitive to it, but you could learn a lot of different things. They could say, oh, wow, just had this new drug medicine because I'm doing XYZ and it's causing some flatulence. I didn't know it was that bad. What I'm really sorry. What can we do about this? And that, boom, that right there, that's then this cooperative dialogue. Hey, well, what do you need? Well, could I maybe work from home, work telework for a couple of weeks while it gets, introduced to my body and I'm able to kind of better handle it? Yeah, absolutely. We could grant that. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And look, I'm really sorry. I'm so embarrassed, but I appreciate you bringing this to me. Okay, great. One example, and this is actually one I actually saw on Jan's site, was, let's say someone has a condition where their skin flakes. And obviously employees may have an issue with that, right? But the uniforms that people wear are short sleeve uniforms. What you can do is say, oh, well, we can have can I just wear a long sleeve shirt? So maybe look, something's going on and my skin's a little flaky, but I don't have anything to cover it up. Can I wear a long sleeve shirt under my uniform? Or can I have a long sleeve shirt offering as a uniform so that this is not an issue? That could be an easy fix. That's not the body odor question, but I'm just trying to give some examples of the conversation that a leader would have in this regard. The body odor thing, though, is really sensitive, and you want to make sure that you're offering and providing guidance on how you can support, and also getting information from them on how they could feel supported, because you don't want them to feel attacked.
As a manager or leader, you want to make sure that they're okay. You want to check in with them. You want to see what they need or what they could use as what you call reasonable accommodation, right? I love that approach. And
Yeah.
I also want to ask the question, since I have a lawyer on the line. I mean, the first thing that would come to mind for me is I don't want to be accused of any sort of bias, discrimination, that I crossed the line in some way and I'm being accused of something in having this conversation. So, can you talk us through that aspect of this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot of these conversations can be very uncomfortable conversations for leaders to get in. But what's important is, if you have the luxury of having an HR office and or an EEO office, looping in those type of professionals sooner than later about, here's the issue, and helping partner. If you don't have that luxury, I think it's important to really be open and transparent about the process with that individual. One of the things you want to make sure of is that when you're having these conversations, it's not accusatory. You're not making threats to an individual about, you need to clean up this odor or you're fired. Hey, this came to my attention. Look, no one's, not a disciplinary conversation or anything like that. I'm just here for better understanding so that I can help support in any way I can. Right. And you're talking in a way and you're providing guidance in a way that is obviously non-threatening. I mean, clearly the supervisor is having the conversation with a direct report. So there's going to be this level of, am I in trouble factor, right? But you want to, knowing that that could be the case, quell that from the beginning, right? Not in trouble. I just want to help, you know, given the situation that's going on. I want to learn more about what's happening and support in any way I can. And I think that's where you start. There's never really going to be a sole, like, bulletproof way to say, hey, someone's not going to take this the wrong way, and we're going to potentially end up in litigation, either at a uh, city level, state level, or whatever. You just never know. But there are things that you can do to set yourself up in a way that, one, shows that you're obviously being respectful of the issue and being respectful of the person. Two, that you're engaging in this that cooperative dialogue, whether it goes down the RA route or not. And three, that you are moving about this in a way that is obviously beneficial to the individual, but also making sure that the work environment is comfortable for all.
Because you have a responsibility to that individual, but you also have a responsibility to the rest of the office and the rest of the team who may also be experiencing this from their perspective.
Correct. It came up because there was an issue, right? And so you, as a manager, and this is your department, you want to make sure that this working environment is conducive for work to get done for everybody. And if there's something
Right.
that's impacting that, then you have to find ways to address that.
There's another related question, which is the cultural aspects, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes odors, smells, perfumes, incense, foods can have a cultural component. So if
Mhm.
someone comes to work with a certain smell coming from either their person or the food that they're eating, and that has a cultural component, how do we address that? Because that feels like an equity and inclusion topic that we want to make sure we're not being discriminatory in any way.
What's important when we talk about, let's say, shared or community microwaves, like, one of the things, regardless of culture, but I've been in places where it's like, don't heat up fish in the fish is not for lunch, right? Fish is not for the community microwave. There could be people from an like schools, like, you can't throw a peanut at a school now. There could be people there could be people with a fish allergy who are like, hey, no, this is a health concern. We want to be mindful that multiple people use this area, and not heat up these types of things, because either the smell could be impacting others, causing an allergic reaction, or otherwise. The other piece, from a cultural standpoint, I think it, again, is still a conversation, right? Yeah, the smell could be still a sensitive conversation, but I think it's something you have to make aware to an individual. Perfume is another good one, and I've had a couple cases on this, and that's, again, very similar to the fish. I had someone who was actually having an allergic reaction to someone's perfume, and I've smelled it, and they must have doused in it, right? But you have to have that conversation with that individual. And it's embarrassing for someone that's their favorite smell, but it's like, hey, at work, we have to be conscious that it's not just you. And the smells that you wear, the perfume that you wear, the cologne that you wear, sometimes can be overpowering to others. So then the suggestion would be mindful of that. And it almost feels very parental, right? Which is why a lot of managers don't want to go down this route, because, like, who are we to say don't wear that cologne or don't wear that perfume? But in the workplace, things are different. But again, it's all about having that conversation with them about, here's the issue that was presented, and how could we resolve this?
I want to talk now about what not to do. I know you said there's no bulletproof, perfect approach to this that's going to avoid any sort of complication or awkwardness, but I feel like there probably are a list of things that you would suggest we definitely not do around this.
Yeah.
One that we talked about is, instead of sitting down and confronting the person directly in a one-on-one, because that feels really uncomfortable, is sending a team-wide reminder email that we
Mhm.
should shower every day, or that we should do XYZ differently. That feels like the easy way out, but not actually an effective and a potentially dangerous approach.
Different schools of thought can agree or disagree with this one, but I think when we're talking about body odor and hygiene, I think that what's important is to have that one-on-one type of dialogue. But I do understand the nature of teams can be very large, and at times maybe a department or unit communication is something that would be helpful. So I'm not saying that it's the best thing or the worst thing. I'm saying it is an option within the arsenal if that's something you feel is necessary. But I would also echo that in that communication, the same themes we've discussed around not making it personal or not making it too kind of direct, but a reminder of HR policy 731 on this. Oh, let's use this as an example. Summertime's coming. It's hot outside. Deodorant may not last that long, right? And so we want to be, hey, it's hot outside. We want to be mindful of perspiration. Just to remind, there's cooling fans here. There's extra deodorant, just so that everyone's aware. And you could use things like this. Is actually a perfect timing of this conversation, but you could use things like that as kind of lead-ins for whatever is going on in hopes that it addresses some of the underlying things. But don't, where I see or where I've seen leaders rely on that too much of a crutch to think that that unit wide or department wide email solved the problem. And it was really like a get out of jail free, like, hey, I did my thing, but I never really addressed it. I put it out there. I did something, but you didn't really do anything, right? That person doesn't know. I don't know that I'm the one that they're talking about. There's an issue with me. So I caution that don't use that as a crutch.
That's a great point. And then anything else, either that you've seen or that you would warn against doing, what not to do in these situations as a manager?
Yeah, when managers strike up a threatening tone with someone, because maybe this is also a poor performer that you have who now also has bad body odor. And so if now you're treating them in a way, in a threatening manner, like, look, if you don't get this together, you're done, or you're talking to them disrespectfully, that obviously that may be common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't so common in some of the cases that at least I've been involved with. Approach it with respect. Don't come into there guns a-blazing and thinking you know what the issue is. Also, too, I would say coming in with your proposed solution from the jump is not something that I would advise. I would advise having an open dialogue, or if the law says like the cooperative dialogue, in trying to be supportive of what they think, how they think we can resolve this. What type of support do you need? That what type of support can I give you? Can we give you to help with this issue? When you go at it thinking that you have all the answers and you're just trying to give the answers and dictate, people don't really like that, right? As human beings, like, people just don't really kind of vibe with that. And so that's one area I would caution to thinking you know everything and thinking you're just going to solve it right away. No, come in there, open ears, open arms. What can we do to make this better together?
That is such an important point, and I feel like can be applied to so many of these leadership challenges or questions, which is the big pressure we feel when we're walking into a conversation like that is I have to solve this and it's on me and I don't know what the answer is. But you're so right in saying don't approach it with that mindset of I've got to solve this and I've got to solve it today. It's that cooperative dialogue. It's going in and first of all identifying and recognizing an issue or a problem,
Right.
getting to as close to the root of it as you can, and then being able to say, okay, maybe I need to think about this a little bit more, and asking the person what solutions they might propose. That
Yeah.
I'm always saying this, it's not all on you as a leader. And
Right.
so asking questions instead of that pressure to have the answer is a really, really good point that you make.
Yeah. And it really solidifies what the whole cooperative dialogue thought process is about, that it's a two-way street here, right?
And so I know you've probably seen a lot of different situations on
Oh
this
gosh.
resource that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So one final question I have is where else in what other situations can we apply some of these ideas and concepts and guidelines? I feel like it's not just about the smell from the microwave or personal odor issue. These principles, what you're suggesting, are probably applicable in a wide range of situations.
Absolutely. Some of the things that I talk about in this space are applicable to the manager employee relationship as a whole, right? And I think it's really applicable in the performance review discussions and how we go about either goal setting or reviews, all of those things. Because when you talk about what it is you're here to do, you and what I want you to do, it's an open discussion, right? You need to have open dialogue about what, as a leader, what the expectations are of the folks who report to you, and truthfully what it is that you expect of it. You need to be open with that as well, but people need some guidance, so it's important to have those conversations and do them the right way. So
Yeah.
my themes around being open with folks, treating people with respect and empathy and all of that, that runs the gamut of not only do you have bad body odor, but are you doing what you need to do for me and whatever organization I'm in? That's applicable across the spectrum.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I don't think this is gonna be the last time we have you on here answering
Hey.
uncomfortable questions. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, from a consulting angle, I have my own company called Kingswood Forest where I do a lot of trainings in this space. When you came to me with this question, I was like, oh, wow, this is right up my alley. LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me at Brian Aquart, BrianAquart. But some of the work that I've done in this space and in others is through my consulting site, Kingswood Forest. And that's just kingswoodforestllc.com. But LinkedIn, as far as getting directly in touch with me, I am super active on that platform. So
You
I
are.
would, yeah, I would say start on LinkedIn. Let's talk there, and then if there's ever anything that I can help support with, conversations you'd like to have, or maybe talks you'd like me to give, I'm happy to chat, and we go from there. But we can start at LinkedIn.